to invite our chief guest, the noted economist of India and also Honorable Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog. I think Sir is one of the few leaders of the country who has extensive exposure and experience of working with 4 or 5 key stakeholders of the society. So I want to request Dr. Rajiv Kumar to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Thank you very much, Akram, for those very kind remarks, and I hope that your effort today will bear a lot of results, will bear fruit. I want to compliment you and the Policy Times and also all your partners for organizing this webinar on the eve of the World Environment Day, because these are the sort of activities and events which will spread the much needed awareness about the environment in our country. I think that is the beginning. We need to change the narrative, we need to change the dialogue, we need to change the mindset of our people, that we have to, that we have to take care of the environment, we have to, be careful with what we do. Just like Mr. Ashok said, we don't want to be in the Western model of, buy, use, purchase, dispose, but in some sense, get into the circular economy. We were very good at it when I was growing up, and our parents were very frugal with their way they used the resources. There was not as much wasted. There was no culture of throwing away things, etc. But unfortunately, you've lost some of that. We need to regain that. Also, and therefore, to once more, to have, I will encourage you to have such webinars in the regions, in the local languages, and not just in English, and create awareness amongst the people of this country, because it's very much needed. The other day, for example, I felt very disappointed that a very senior person in the government was saying that we have come to a situation where the farmers of our country think it to be their right to burn the stubble, and they will do it, and they need financial incentives to not burn the stubble. Now that's not an environment consciousness. These farmers could have been, can be aware that after all, doing what they are doing causes, harm to the environment and to them and to the next generations. So I think I can't emphasize enough how to change the mindset of our people. The people who are, growing paddy in areas which get scant rainfall and drawing water from the ground, even when, the groundwater has been depleted 150%. Why would they not start looking at alternatives and diversify? And why is it important to, or why is it essential for the government again to provide them incentives? So I think, and here we can actually call upon our own country's traditions, because our country's tradition is that we have always, from times immemorial, the tradition of living with nature, living in nature, and not conquering nature and not spoiling nature. After all, we are a country which has worshipped trees, and we are a country which worships, nature and prakriti, and oft quoted cliche almost, which has become now of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. But the point is that when I was growing up, we were not, we were taught, to respect nature and not to spoil it, not to pluck. This has to be instilled in our people. And we need to think about how to do it, how to bring it into the curriculum of our schools, how to make examples of this in our preschool, primary schools, everywhere. And I think I'm saying all this because, in a democracy like ours, we get what we demand in terms of policies. We get what the dominant narrative becomes. And that dominant narrative today, unfortunately, is not about circular economy. It's not about preserving and protecting nature. It's not about mainstreaming environment. Some of us do, and and this remains in our quarters. how to make it much wider, much bigger. How can people once more start worshipping their rivers and keeping them clean and keeping them healthy rather than spoiling them, and not even thinking once about dumping the whole plastic waste into those rivers to convert them into almost like sewage, canals and so on. I mean, it wasn't so earlier, and I think, I mean, the fact is that all our rivers, are named after goddesses, except for Brahmaputra, which has got this wonderful name as the son of the Brahma. So I mean, that's the status. That's, by the way, the only masculine name in our river that we've got. And that's the status we have given to the environment. All the traditional Vedic mantras used to be for nature. For the 12 Adityas and so on. So, Akram, I am honestly saying that this has to go out of the NITI Aayog and out of the Udyog Bhavan and the Paryavaran Bhavan, etc., into the broader people. Unless we do that, we will not succeed, because policy cannot go far beyond what the people what the people want and what the people think that they require. So I think this is, and that's my first, and I think an important point, because it's not emphasized enough. Second is, of course, that our honorable Prime Minister has been bold enough to say that we don't want to apportion blame on people who have spoiled the climate and who have brought our only planet that we have to the state that we have brought it to, but has said that, look, it's in our interest to adopt ambitious national targets, determine national, national targets for environment, and we need to do that. Therefore, we've adopted the kind of targets that we have adopted for our renewable power, and created the International Solar Alliance, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I think this is where what we need to do is to ensure that the policies that we are enunciating are actually implemented, and yet at the same time don't become an impediment in the life of the people, in the growth of the people, in the development aspects of our work. I noted the fact that there are 39 sectors which require environment protection, environment clearances. Uh, and I've been talking to the Secretary Environment, who used to be in NITI Aayog, to ensure that these clearances are given without being seen or becoming an obstruction to the entrepreneurial spirit of the country. We can and we must balance environment with livelihood. I think it's important to remember that, because this trade-off has to be avoided. We don't have the luxury of spoiling the environment today and retrofitting later, as most advanced economies have done. You know, uh, the fact that after the World War II, River Thames in London was known to be a river where if you put your hand in, only half the hand will come out. It was so acidic. It is such a pollution. But now they grow trout there very well. But the point is, and similar strategy almost has been followed by China, who have let the sort of pollution take hold and pushed with the development. I don't think we have that luxury in India any longer. The world will not let us do it, and our own demography and our own young people's aspirations will not let us do that. And I have seen with my own eyes what such a approach can do, because the great river Amu Darya, the Oxus, so much water is taken out of it that it doesn't reach now the Aral Sea, and therefore the southern part of the Aral Sea has completely dried up. And Kazakhstan has created a dam in the middle of the sea, and the sand and the chemicals on the bottom of the Aral Sea now today swirl all around Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, causing extreme environment pollution and degradation. We can't let that happen to our rivers and to our water bodies. So we need to find this balance between environment and livelihoods. And I think that is something we need to take up sector by sector, maybe do micro studies. And here I think that's something that your think tank could help. We know already that we are at a pretty pretty serious state in the environment in our country. I think the Environment Protection Index unfortunately ranks us as 168 out of 180. And in some of the areas like air quality and emissions and water pollution, etc., our ranking is not so good. I think it's very well known that 11 of the most polluted 14 countries in the world are with us. And so therefore, there is no time to lose. There is no time to lose. And therefore, we need to start working right away at how to create a different quality, a different model of urbanization. How do we bring back the cycle on the road? How do we bring back walking as a practice? And how do we minimize our take on natural resources and go back to the circular economy? Uh, I'm happy to say that I am chairing a committee on the circular economy. We've got 11 sector groups. These reports will be available soon. But as always in our country, implementation of these rules, of these reports and recommendations would be the key as you go forward. And I request, the policy times and other think tanks to actually take hold of these recommendations and then make them into a narrative, into a public narrative, so that again they can be, they can become a part of the public conversation. Friends, I want to say very honestly that business as usual will not do any longer. It's just not possible. We need to think differently. We need to think very ambitiously, and we need to think in terms of the social change rather than anything else. And here, one thing that I'm pushing for very hard, very tough, is the adoption of agroecology for Indian agriculture, uh, for Indian agriculture. And this is, you know that our agriculture puts out 500 million tons of carbon every year into the atmosphere. Our soil has been degraded. We lose about 10% of our GDP to soil degradation. Large parts of our soil today, the organic carbon content is far below 2.5, which is the minimum that the Indian Soil Institute in Bhopal recommends. It's gone down to 0.5 as an average, which means that we are next to converting our land into barren land. So how do we increase the organic carbon content in our soil? And friends, ladies and gentlemen, I want to point your attention to the practice of natural farming, to the practice of what I call Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati, or the zero budget natural farming as propagated by Mr. Subhash Palekar and now practiced by at least about 30 lakh farmers in the country across 9 or 10 states. NITI Aayog is pushing this agenda as hard as we can. And I don't want to take too much of your time because you can look it up, except to say that this is probably the only, and I'm repeating, this is probably the only economic practice, agricultural practice, which can restore the organic carbon in the soil and thereby sequestering the carbon from the atmosphere. This can be the largest carbon reversal program in the world. And rather than pump your chemicals into the soil, which then release the carbon into the atmosphere, we can bring back that carbon into the soil. And that's one contribution India can make, and we have got the practices already proven to some extent to restoring the carbon balance in globally. Apart from that, the agroecology, natural farming reduces water consumption by almost a fourth. It reduces, as I said, it does not use any chemical inputs whatsoever, and it also permits the plants and the trees, because of the WAPSA, as they say, that procedure, to fix moisture from the atmosphere in the same manner as the rainforests do. And I'm sure, I don't know how many of you would know, that the water content in our moisture in our atmosphere is, mind you, 7 times the amount of water that you have groundwater and underground water. 7 times. There are practically rivers of water in our atmosphere which can be fixed by the plants and brought back to the soil. So friends, approaches like this are required today in sector after sector. I'm looking for ideas, I'm looking for examples, whereby you can approach production, manufacturing, services in a manner that will conserve our environment and reverse the degradation that we've had. Uh, we need to go back to living with nature. We need to we need to make sure that our country does not go down the route that many other countries have. We can't afford it. And I'm sure that efforts like this will contribute greatly to this program of environment protection and environment conservation. I once more compliment you and wish you all the best for the deliberations ahead. Thank you.